Welcome back to my channel. One of my very first videos back in January of this year was on what I feed my dogs. I have 3 dogs. You've seen them probably in every video and you can hear them in the background now. Because I do raw feed my dogs, they get whole cuts of chicken, beef, as well as organ meat, and a lot of people messaged me and asked me exactly what are the portions that I feed my dogs. I'm going to go over that in today's video. So if you were interested in that previous video and you had some questions, stay tuned and hopefully I'll be able to answer a lot of the questions that came up for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today, and let's get to it. Okay, you guys, so I'd like to start by talking about what I feed my dogs and the ratios that I feed them, and then we'll go over into the kitchen and we will look at how that actually looks in practice. So I basically go with a BARF diet, which is an acronym that stands for biologically available raw food. And so my dogs are on an 80-10-10 portion. So firstly, they're getting about 3% of their body weight in food every day. My dogs are fed once a day. A lot of websites that I looked at, they suggested splitting it into 2 meals. However, with my dog's metabolism and appetite, it's just easier for me to do one feeding before I leave for work in the morning. So my dogs get, like I said, about 3% of their body weight every day in food. And then that is further broken down by the 80-10-10. So 80% of their diet is muscle meat. And that is basically the muscle from anywhere on the animal. It includes tongue, it includes heart meat, any cut of meat that would come off of the bone. So when you think of that, think of like the skeletal bones, and then think of the meat on those bones. Also included in that, because the heart is actually a muscle, it is considered part of your meat portion. And then my dogs get 10% edible bone. And edible bone is going to be like chicken wings, the whole carcasses of small animals, rabbit, goat, beef, pork, etc. In addition to that, the dogs are going to get 10% of their meal is going to be edible bone. And so that's going to be like the neck bones in a chicken or smaller birds, quail, duck, etc., turkey. It would be any like chicken wings, turkey wings if your dog is big enough to break down those bones, and any like rib bones for smaller animals. Like, you can give your dog a whole chicken breast with the bone in. You can give your dog, duck breast with the bone in if they're a large enough breed to be able to break that down and break down those bones. And then the other 10% is going to be organ meat. And when we talk about organ meat, you want to be specific in like a secreting organ. So something that's secreting hormones. So that's going to include like liver, pancreas. It's going to include brain, which is also known as sweetbread, kidney, testicles are also in there as well. So it's going to be 10% of their diet every day. Typically, my dogs are getting liver. Every now and again, I will also switch that up and give them kidneys. And you can also do a 5-5 on that portion instead of the 10, where you give your dog 5% liver and then 5% one of the other options. And that's going to be their diet every single day. Now, you can also supplement your dog's diet with things like fruit and vegetables. Great fruits that you can add to your dog's diet are apple, melons, including watermelon, cantaloupe, things like that. Bananas, berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries are great additives for your dog's food. You want to stay away from grapes. Grapes have been known to cause renal failure, kidney failure in dogs. So you want to stay away from those. I actually have grapevines. A lot of you guys know that from some of my other videos. I have grapevines in my yard, and I have to make sure that when the grapes are in season, that the dogs stay away from them, so that way they don't run the risk of eating those accidentally, because my dogs will pretty much eat anything. As far as vegetables are concerned, kale, spinach, pumpkin, squash, chard, which is another type of like a leafy green, also carrots and celery. Now, when you're feeding your dog vegetables, because dogs do not have the enzymes to break those down properly, you want to cook that. You want to either boil it, steam it, puree it, or ferment fruits and things like that. You don't have to cook them. You can if you like, but it's not absolutely necessary. Now, in addition, my dogs are also getting fish as a supplement. So you can give your dogs fish oil as a supplement, or you can give them actual fish. I prefer to do both. My dogs get a mix of sardines and mackerel, but you can also give your dogs what are called sprats. I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that type of fish, but maybe someone in the comments can enlighten me on that. Also, herring is good, as well as trout. I've also given my dogs salmon. It wasn't on the list that I found online, but it's just another type of fish that I tend to add in when I do their fish mix for their food. So that's basically what goes into my dog's food on a daily basis. And what I'll actually do today for you guys is I'll actually get my scale out and weigh everything that I'm giving my dogs, so you guys can see a little bit more clearly the ratios that I'm sticking to. All right, great. You guys, now we're in the kitchen, and I've already turned on my scale. What you're going to want to do, turn your scale on. And then I take an empty bowl. This is the same as the bowls that the dogs get their food in every day. You want to put your empty bowl on your scale, because there is going to be a certain amount of weight that's going to come from the bowl. First, we're going to switch this over to ounces. And as you can see, the bowl itself weighs 1.35 ounces, especially because Princess is so little. That 1.35 ounces can be quite a bit of meat if I'm adding that at the end. So we're going to make sure that we zero this out. And that's basically, if you've ever been in a science class, it's the same as a tare button, T-A-R-E. It just zeroes out the machine. So that way now it's going to say negative 1.34. So that way we're not counting the weight of each of these bowls. So we look at this chicken thigh quarter is 13.31 ounces. Now, that's a little bit more than what Noche needs. That's pretty much about 1.5 times what he needs. And it's a little bit less than what Apollo needs. So what I typically do, and this is for my dogs, because I find that if I stick to a 3% diet, my dogs, Noche and Apollo especially, begin to look a little thin. So I'll take, this is a small chicken thigh quarter. This one, as you can see, is a bit bigger. This one is 13.51 ounces. I have some larger ones here as well. This one is 14.14. So when I look at these, none of these are really big enough to cover what Apollo would need based on his size. So what I typically do is I will give them a little bit more meat to make up that difference. Noche is getting, because these chicken thigh quarters are larger than what he actually would need, he's getting a little bit more as far as the bone content than what he probably should be getting in his ratio. And Apollo is getting just a hair under. What I typically will do, as you can see with this bowl and this bowl, I will throw in any extra chicken necks from Princess's meals. Once I make hers up, I will throw those into Apollo's bowls, so that way it can help to offset some of the bone that he needs. Now, I will also say that I use those numbers as a guideline. I don't use it as, exact numbers on exactly what my dogs have to have every day. I look at my dogs and I know when they're getting thin. I know I can look at Noche and see if I see his rib cage, if the area right behind his rib cage before you get to his hip is thin and it's sort of coming in too much, I know that I need to increase the amount of food that he's getting. So this is basically what I do. Noche gets the smaller chicken thigh quarters every day. Apollo will get all of the larger thigh quarters, and then I will supplement that with the amount of beef that they need for their meat portion. So you guys can do that exact same thing. With Princess, she basically just gets 2 chicken necks like this. And I'll show you just sort of what that looks like. So we'll turn this back on. Switch this back over. We'll put this bowl on. And her bowls weigh about 1 ounce. So when we zero that out again, the 2 chicken necks are about 2.73 ounces. So Princess needs 1.5 ounces of chicken neck every single day. And that's basically about 1 chicken neck. The rest of that can go to the other dogs to supplement their food. And so she's going to get that 1 chicken neck because that's all the bone that she's going to need. And then she's going to get her liver, and she's going to get the beef and the fish and all of that. So I'll show you guys what that looks like next. Once everything is portioned out, I'll portion out 1 meal for each dog so you guys can see exactly what it looks like when it's all finished. Okay, you guys, so I wanted to go over the mathematics of the raw feeding for your dogs. So, and I'll start with my smallest dog, which is Princess, because when you're feeding bone-in material, you have to account for the amount of bone that your dog needs, but you also have to subtract out the amount of meat attached to those bones from the total amount of bone that your dog requires. So again, you guys can go to perfectlyrawesome.com. I'll leave the name of that website in the description. They have a lot of great information. They also have the ratios for different types of bone-in meat, everything from like chicken, quail, rabbit, duck, goat, etc. So you can look on their website. They will go over all of that information with you. And give you really detailed descriptions and ratios for everything. But what you basically want to do is you want to take the amount of bone that your dog needs. You're going to solve for that. This is going to take a little bit of algebra, but it's really not as difficult as 9th grade was. So, like for Princess, she needs 0.53 ounces of bone every day. So the algebra equation is 1 over 0.36 equals x over 0.53. You take the 0.53 divided by 0.36, and that's going to give you the answer, which is 1.47 ounces of chicken necks for Princess. Now, I like nice round numbers, so I'm going to round that up to 1.5 ounces. It's just easier for me to do 1.5 ounces than it is to look on the scale and try to measure it out exactly to 1.47. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at that number and say, okay, so how much of that chicken neck is meat? And so if you have 1.5 ounces of chicken neck, we know that 64% of that is meat, and that's going to equal 0.97 ounces. So we take the total amount of meat that Princess needs to eat per day, which is, Princess is here, 4.23 ounces of meat. We'll subtract the 0.97 that she's getting from the bone-in portion, and Princess then needs to get another 3.26 approximately ounces of meat per day to meet her requirement for just boneless meat. So she's getting 1.5 ounces of chicken neck, which is going to give her her bone requirement, and then she's getting 3.26 ounces of just regular meat. That can be just chicken, boneless chicken meat. It can be boneless rabbit meat. It can be boneless beef, which you really should be trying to give your dog mostly beef. But any of those meat sources will work. You really want to try to vary it and switch it up as much as you can. So switching between chicken, quail, duck is really great. Also switching rabbit, goat, beef is also really great. And if you can get other things like deer, depending on what area you live in, you know, I know a lady online who has a great channel who's a raw feeder. She feeds her dogs emu. Unfortunately, I'm not able at this point to find emu meat here in Atlanta. I'm sure that it probably is here. Someone has it somewhere, but I haven't found it. So if I do find it, it may be another meat that I add in. When I'm at my grocery store, I do look for other meats, other protein sources that I can add or supplement, swap out in their diets, to give them a bit more variety. So those are the numbers for Princess. And then you would do the same thing for any other dogs as far as you want to firstly solve for the amount of bone that's required for the dog. You want to take the amount of bone that you have, figure out how much of that item is then meat, subtract that from the total amount of meat that you need, and then you want to add the rest of that in as boneless meat. So for Noche, his number is 2.31 ounces of bone. When we solve for X, that's going to give us 9.63 ounces of chicken thigh quarter meat. And chicken thigh quarters are about 24% bone and about 76% meat. So we're doing 2.31 over 0.24, and that's how we come up with the 9.63 ounces is the total amount that we need to get the bone that he's going to need. We take the 76% of the 9.63, which is the amount that's actually meat. That comes up to 7.32 ounces. We subtract that from the total amount of meat that he needs per day, and it leaves us with a difference of 11.11 ounces, and that's what he would get per day in just not ground beef, but the sort of like taco meat that I give them. It's basically just cut up chunks of beef. You can use beef stew meat, or you can buy a roast and cut it up. I've definitely done that before. If I had roast beef on sale at the grocery store, I would just buy roast and cut it up myself into the portion size that the dogs needed. Apollo's numbers, because he's about 75 pounds is what I think, until I take him to the vet. So based on that, he needs about 3.6 ounces of bone. That means he's going to have in chicken thigh quarters 15 ounces per day of chicken thigh quarters to get the 3.6 ounces of bone that he needs. It's going to also give him 11.4 ounces of meat coming from the thigh quarters. which leaves him with a deficit of 17.4 ounces of meat to meet his 28.8 ounces of meat that he needs per day. And then that will be added in as beef or other types of animal meat. And then we go from there and just add in the required amount of liver. They get added in their fish supplement. And depending on if I'm adding in any other type of fruit or vegetables, I will add that in. My dog's food gets frozen. I make it up once a week usually. And then they are served every morning a frozen meal. I like to feed my dogs frozen because, especially Noche, he is a gulper. And by having the food frozen, it keeps him from just gulping all of his food down without chewing it first. So I'm going to take you guys over to the kitchen now so you guys can see, what it looks like when I'm preparing their food and what it looks like as I'm weighing everything out. All right, you guys, so we're back. And I'm going to show you on Princess's meal how we add in the meat. So I've put her chicken neck in the bowl and I zeroed it out again because we only want to measure the amount of meat that we're going to add now. So based on our calculation, she needs 3.26 ounces of meat. Now, because the chicken neck was a little bit smaller than our target weight for what we wanted at 1.5 ounces, I'm going to give her a little bit more meat to make up that difference so that she's still at the 3% of her total body weight. So we should be, based on the numbers, giving her 3.26. I'm actually going to give her 3.4 ounces, maybe even 3.5 ounces of meat. There we go. So we're going to go with 3.43. And that is pretty much what we're going to go with on each of her meals, somewhere between 3.40 and 3.50. And then I'm going to be back when I show you how I'm going to measure out and do the exact same thing with the boys' food. But today I calculated wrong and I did not get enough beef meat for them. As a result, I had to go to the regular grocery store around the corner from my house and try to get beef meat for them. Now, the beef meat that I get from my normal grocery store is $2.69 a pound. The grocery store that I went to today, the lowest cut or the cheapest cut of meat that they had was $4.19 per pound. That's a difference of $1.50 per pound. And if you are switching your dogs over to raw feedings, the price is definitely something that can be a determining factor on if this is something you're going to be able to do. And when you're talking about, for my dog Apollo, he has to have on a daily basis, Apollo is getting a little over a pound of meat per day. So over the course of a week, that difference of $1.50 per pound from one store to another is the difference of, over $10 a week in feeding my dogs. So know how much meat you need before you go to the grocery store, so that way you don't end up having to supplement whatever you're missing or whatever amount you don't have with a more expensive cut of meat from the grocery store that may be in your neighborhood. Just wanted to throw that in there. I'm going to come back in just a couple seconds to kind of show you guys once I get everything wrapped up and get Apollo's meals taken care of, and we'll go from there. All right, you guys. So the amount of liver that I had, I did not have enough to give both of the big dogs liver every single day. Always remember that you can balance your dog's meals over time. It doesn't have to be a complete meal each and every day. So just to recap for you guys, chicken thigh quarters, Apollo is also going to have the chicken necks, the leftover chicken necks, to fill out his bone quota for each day. There's also the beef, whether it is the chunks of beef that I have here that were less expensive, they were $2.69 a pound, or the slightly more expensive steak, thin steak beef that was $4.19 a pound. That's in there as well. There's also the fish mixture, which has the oysters, sardines, tuna, and salmon. And remember, you can swap out the salmon for mackerel if they have that at your store. And also has the turmeric mixed into it. And then, of course, the beef liver. You can switch that out for beef kidneys. I've also used pork kidneys and also goat kidneys. All right, so I hope you guys learned a lot and I was able to answer any questions that you had from the very first video regarding the dog's food. If I haven't, please leave a comment below or email me directly. Of course, the information's in the description box every single time. Also, I will leave the math in the description box as well. So I hope that this was helpful. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, watching the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I do want to announce that as of right now, the last time I checked, I had about 30 followers, 30 people following my channel. And I am going to start doing a giveaway, sort of thank you, every time I hit a viewer subscriber milestone. That first milestone will be for 100 viewers, and then it will go to 250 viewers, 500 viewers, 1,000 viewers, 2,500 viewers, 5,000 viewers, 10,000 viewers, and we'll continue to go on from there. So if you guys can share this video on your Facebook and other social media platforms to help build up the subscriber list, we can get to those subscriber giveaways much faster. It may be something that has to do with the dogs. It may be something that has to do with hair care, skin care, something like that. Whoever, once we do that, so once we get to that milestone, I will go ahead and pick a winner, and then they will be able to decide from the options that are available what they would like for their prize. So stay tuned. I really have some great things coming up, and I hope that you guys will all be benefiting from the channel and from the things that I'm putting out here. So as always, I will see you guys next Sunday. Kisses. Bye.